Rich, wanted to get your thoughts on the potential of two Welsh regions defecting from the URC, joining the Premiership. There were reports which suggested some discussions had taken place. It's since been denied that official discussions took place, at least. But say in future, if the Scarlets and Cardiff, as has been mooted, were to join the Premiership, well, firstly, I should ask you, do you see this ever happening? But secondly, how would it actually happen contractually? Like, are they not contractually bound to the URC? I know there's sort of a little bit of an overlap between the URC and the Premiership in that they work in the same building, I'm pretty sure. But how does that whole process actually play out, Your man?
Look, I would have said this couldn't happen. But obviously, with the fact that there's potentially two Premiership clubs going out of business in Worcester and Wasps, there may be an interest from an English point of view to actually bring the Welsh back in, but I couldn't see how they could split it. Two teams playing in the Premiership and two teams playing in the URC. I think for me that would be quite farcical. But look, I'll be honest, on the ground in Wales, if I had £1 for every person who said to me they'd prefer to be playing Bristol and Bath and Gloucester than Leinster or Zebra, I'd be sitting pretty in the valleys still, counting my money. It's like they don't love it. They don't love the URC. They don't. And their whole idea is that their idea is that obviously, they can go to away games. Away fans can come. They're the old fixtures that they had when Cardiff RFC played Harlequins. That's where the matches their dads and mum and dads went to. So on the ground in Wales, they would love it, but I don't think they would love. I just don't see how you could split two. And then in terms of how they could get out of the URC, I'm sure they're contractually tied in for a while. So I just think it's probably the English clubs may be looking at how they can get those 4 extra fixtures a year that they may lose, and obviously the Welsh would in theory love to jump there, but I don't see how they could split 2 into the URC and 2 into the Premiership. Now, I'm not sure in 4 or 5 years' time we'll still have 4 Welsh regions. I think they'll end up 3. But yeah, there's so much to and fro there. And look, the Dragons had a great win, but it wasn't a good weekend for the Welsh regions either. Either Scarlets getting pretty much pumped at home. Cardiff were shocking up in Scotland. And the Lions, who aren't great, beat the Ospreys. So there's a lot of things to be sorted out Welsh region and rugby level.
The money aspect is really pertinent because we've very recently discussed how the game is built. I think you call it foundations of sand, Birch. Yeah. So if this possibly is going to make more money for the Welsh regions and also potentially even for the Premiership, which we can see is falling apart in certain instances, then absolutely it's the right play. Like, rugby needs to be really open-minded about turning club rugby into something that actually makes money, because it just doesn't at the moment. The international game is completely propping the whole thing up. And if this is a way for those Welsh people, like I've seen them on Twitter, I don't know how, like you've given us insight into it actually being a reality in real life. If those people are willing to go and vote with their feet and have big attendances at games, which hasn't been the case in the URC, then they should absolutely go for it. And let's be honest, they haven't really added much to the URC in the last couple of years.
I'm sure Ealing Trailfinders and Jersey Reds at the top of the championship table will be delighted to see 2 Welsh clubs come in and take their prospective spots in the Premiership. But just Murray, to follow up on what Birch is saying about a future in which there may be only 3 regions anyway. I guess if you lost 2 of the regions from the URC and they went into the Premiership, I'm sure it would add to some degree to the Premiership. At least they would have some enthusiasm for it. But at the same time, the 2 remaining Welsh regions in the URC will probably have less than to contribute to the URC, because it's hard to imagine their fans showing up when they don't even have the prospect of playing against Scarlets or Cardiff for the rest of the season. You would probably wind up with a reality where you have only 2 Welsh regions in 5 years' time, and they're both playing in the Premiership. So, like, is there a bit of longer term thinking needed here as well? I mean, I'm sure they are thinking of it this way. I'm just kind of spitballing out loud here, really.
Yeah, but maybe that's a better model for Welsh rugby. Like, if there's only 2 sides, yeah, it's going to be really tough for the first years and would cause massive friction. But like, if those 2 clubs or regions or whatever they might be were attracting bigger attendances and it was making more money and still feeding good players into the Welsh national side, which is what their purpose is, then maybe that's a good outcome. Yeah, it'd be a tricky one for the URC again to have to shift. That would be really frustrating because when the South Africans came on board, the message was, this is us now for the next 5 years or whatever it might be, where we settle and you can get a level of stability and continuity with the competition. So that would be a frustration. But I genuinely am more these days, more and more thinking, okay, I'm not just going to dismiss every idea here because it's not what we're used to. We actually do need to, in some instances, be kind of radical. And the reaction rugby is always really alarmed when someone suggests changing something. But the status quo as it is, it's grand. Yeah, it's decent, but there's massive holes in it as well. And as Birch and Owen highlighted previously, some of the foundations are built on sand.